Let's get it, y'all. So, it's time for me to talk about something very important. With this world that's getting more into health and the world as it's going, with the things changing, not really anything changing, just, as we progress and as we become more, advanced as humans, um, there's some things that, essentially we're learning well, we're doing good. But there's just, some things we need to keep in mind, and that's going to be, our health. And this is going to be covering the health standards for all humans, men and women, you know, um, just because this is something that we don't have yet that we need to have. That to completely solidify everything. This is like a one place, cover of, what uh, health is for humans. Okay, because we all are starting to get really healthy. It's a great thing that fitness is getting more popular in the younger generation and the mainstream media, and it's spreading therefore into the older generations as well, who grew up, in a time where like working out was just being like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and there was not really an in between, and so like sadly, kids in like the 80s and 90s grew up, men grew up very distant, from just a lot of men grew up very distant from, exercise. There just wasn't, any consensus, you know, for like a boy to, just drop and do push-ups in his room or something like that. There was no like motivation for that or incentive or whatever. Not incentive, there just wasn't like a thought to do that. So these days, though, it's a little bit different. And so with this coming world, we're all getting into our health, which we're all going to come to these things eventually. It's just we have to go ahead and solidify what we're talking about, because there are still people that are not fully there yet, and as well as that are on the way of trying to become fully healthy. And there is a point of health that, like I say, is a standard. So and I've, identified these standards myself, and I use these standards to be, as high a quality of a human being as I, possibly can, you know, through these standards. In my humble attempt to follow these standards as much as I can, as much as the next man might try, or woman. So basically, what I'm getting at is that, these standards, as I get into them, before I get into them, I want to go ahead and talk one more quick thing about, you see, basically, this video is mostly, it's for everybody. It is for everybody. Because even people that have a lot of these standards covered, need to kind of have them identified. Because there's a big difference between having these standards identified and broken down versus not. And so that's kind of a big thing that I'm trying to cover here. And so basically, this is also for people that are like, basically aren't like successful or succeeding in life, or lack health, or lack some sort of, you know, level of attraction that they desire, or something. Because, physical attraction is like part of your health, and, it's part of your social and physical health, because that your physical attraction isn't like some super, we as a society have been taught, that health itself, if not, physical attraction, if not health itself, is a superficial concept. It's like a something that narcissists, maybe contain, or not. It's just something that like, isn't like natural, or isn't like necessary, or isn't like, conducive to like, just, human righteousness in general. We just kind of have been taught that like, like attraction is something that needs to be kind of like, just dismissed in the face of people, not knowing how to take care of their own health. Because that's all attraction is good health, whether it's good social health, good physical health. It's a combination. You don't have attraction without all of the healths. So it's a combination of all of the healths that make an attractive human being. And so like, and the thing is an attractive human being can then attract another attractive human being, meaning a high quality human being. And they can mate. So yeah, and they can mate and they can make high quality children, and yeah. So to and then meaning that if they mate, essentially they can mate. You're supposed to be attractive. Like every other animal. We know like bird dances and stuff like that. Like I just think humans, why would we, it's like when you see like, an unhealthy couple, it's like, what, I mean, I don't know, I just don't know, like how sexual attraction really works when it comes to like unhealthy human beings, because like, obviously there's something different mentally going on. It's like how you would think like how your grandpa could still see your grandma as being beautiful. Even though, I see my grandma as very beautiful. My grandmother's, but I don't know. I'm just saying like, and as I get older I can understand, I think that's kind of the point is you can understand how beauty grows, what it is. But at the same time, it's it's like a different thing because like, two like overweight people or something, it's kind of just like, man, I just don't know how they have sex, like with all the fat in the way, with I just don't understand. And it's obviously not right or natural. It obviously isn't nice or healthy or good, so this is just for like humans, that make those videos on YouTube that are like, I'm 30 and I'm single still and da da da. Like, this is why. If you have, the thing I kind of have against those kind of things is like, if you have the energy to get online and, like whine about how unhealthy you are, like, essentially, like, that's, how could you not work on your health? Like, how could you not think, like, I don't know. Like, do you think that, like, you're just handed, like, things? I know it confuses you when you see, like, fat dudes with their fat girlfriend and you're like, they're happy, but, like, they're not, really. Like, they're suffering together. God bless them. God put them together so they can, help each other and not, imagine if they were alone, like, I'm single and I'm like this, I could be single and a lot worse, but there's plenty of people that are fat and alone, and it's because they can handle it and they need to be through that, but like, essentially you're kind of supposed to be like, healthy and then be able to find a healthy person too. Yeah. So, I don't know. And, it's just because we don't know, like, this is what I mean, is we have such a problem with attractiveness, all this stuff, fat shaming, the fact that we can't call people fat, that it's negative or wrong to call a fat person fat when it's totally not, because they are fat, and that's a problem, and that's what's causing their metabolic conditions. Like there is such thing as having too much body fat percent, which this is getting into the standards thing. This is how standards allow us to, do what's right, like, I just can't, be more passionate about righteousness and fact and right and wrong and logic, and just uh, I don't know. That's my thing. I just couldn't imagine not really living in such a way that is in alignment with what's correct. You know, and I think the thing is that I don't really look for what's correct. You know, in here, I look for what's correct. Through logic and reasoning, which is, I mean, that's the main reason, is that most human beings haven't undergone the amount of logical experience I have, because I've taken 5 different college courses on logic and reasoning. I actually saw my logic, the main reasoning professor that I have his book right there. I saw him at the store the other day, and I was thinking in my head, who was that? I thought he taught me about ancient Rome or something for a second. I was like, no, like a language or something, and then it clicked. And I was like, oh, that was freaking Barry, man. And yeah, so shout out him, man. Yeah, he really affected me, in terms of like helping me, learn. His teaching really affected me and helping me learn, to put logic together. I was always a very intuitive and logical and smart guy. I originally used logic. Of course, my interest and like natural disposition to logic allowed me to take it even further, how I did, but I cannot discredit, what his teaching did. It's just, you can't. Like, it's the first time that I really, really, really was able to put things together like math. The golden rule was the first thing that I learned that was like essentially like a mathematical equation of logic to life. Like, you're treating others how you want to be treated. Like, treat, Y's like X. I don't know. So that's kind of like the start of like, putting things together. So with that covered, now that my dry mouth is cured, I'm definitely going to continue this, at least so far. This is going to be our, 12 health standards that allow you to be attractive, healthy, same thing, like I like to explain attractiveness in like the like cool way, like you'll get ladies, dude, like, but I mean, like, when you're actually attractive, there's nothing really cool about it, like it's just a product of health. There's nothing like, it's like you're in like a place where you like realize this is what humans are. It's like, how every other animal looks the same and looks healthy and fine, and like every deer, just see fat deer with acne, and that's essentially like, the point is that you're just a normal human at that point. Kind of like if you go to California, maybe you see a lot more healthy people because of not because they necessarily have standards yet, but because like I was talking about it in the introduction, is that this stuff, this fitness, this lifestyle, healthy eating, the knowledge itself is becoming more accessible, and it's just becoming easier. So like without standards, that's what I was getting at too, is that we're eventually just coming to these things because we are going to use fact knowledge to realize that we shouldn't be eating mammals. That's just the thing that's killing us. That's like what's unhealthy. We're just gonna. I mean, that's why veganism is so popular. I think people will kind of see more value in the poultry and fish industries. But that is what it is, man. But so we want to get into our 12 types of health. Let's go ahead and start out with spiritual, the most important. Spiritual health is going to be essentially, what comprises every single other type of health. In the most philosophical way possible, if you could begin to imagine. So, spiritual health is essentially the reason why spiritual health is so important is because consciousness is what is uh, essential to humanity. Essentially, I guess. I mean, I don't even know if you can call it essential, but it is very, unique to humanity. So it's kind of like something that makes us uniquely human, and it's something that identifies us completely. So that's going to cover everything else in the most strong way. So, like, consciousness is kind of like essentially, you know, like, like what a God, what God, God, is consciousness and is our consciousness. You know, getting deep into metaphysics, that's essentially what this is metaphysics. So your relationship with God, righteousness, goodness, fact, all of this, whatever you want to call it, job, universe, science, goodness, righteousness, truth, logic, whatever you want to call this concept, whatever you want to call him, God. So your relationship with this consciousness, like we're consciousness, that's why if you basically Aristotle, like ancient philosophers and like ancient philosophers began like Aristotle is basically who started. I would say is probably the first person to have actually properly logically defined God with reason, because of the fact that he identified that a God would be something that's completely ultimate. You see, and so that's kind of in like ultimate in the sense of like it. It's not something that a God isn't something that like has arms and legs and has to poop every morning, and has to take a shower, and has to shave. God is like a perfect, constantly perfect being. It's like in need of nothing. So Aristotle was the first philosopher to reason that. And so in basically the Islamic world is kind of what, also reasoned that and then took that even further, as well as, literally incorporating and learning from Aristotle, and promoting this logic and reasoning and creating the university and creating math itself, logic and reasoning, algebra at least. So that's kind of where I'm getting at, that like this is like a mathematical thing. It's logical, it's metaphysics, and it's like, so basically that's kind of what we're getting at, is your relationship with God, meaning your root consciousness, if you believe what the righteousness in life, morality, integrity, these things, that really uniquely in, just consciousness itself, awareness, which is going to be your you, if you're aware and you're conscious, you're going to be doing what's right actively. So that's kind of the sense of like, your relationship with God, good values, good habits. Let me read here. Your mindfulness in general is what I've written. Prayer, meaning, integrity and reason, and prayer, meaning, your meditation on this concept, and your meditation and thankfulness. Gratitude is a huge part. Gratitude is like probably how any human could find and understand God first, even before thinking that logical way that I said, because that thankfulness is essentially that's how I was able to find God and understand God first, essentially, other than logic. But thankful and gratitude is kind of how you can understand why it makes sense. Because if you want to be, why the complexity makes sense. Because if you want to be thankful for anything, like if I want to be thankful for, this pen here, I can't just like, thank the company, Sakura, because then I gotta thank, the creator of Sakura's dad and mom for meeting, and then I gotta thank like all the workers at Sakura and all their dads and moms for meeting and making them, and then all the circumstances in their life that caused them to learn and be able to make this pen. And so that is too complicated. If I were to write a list down of all my thanks and all the things that I had to be thankful for, it would all come up to one source, which is going to be the most simple conclusion, right? Which is scientifically, typically what's most correct. And so, right? So, essentially, that's kind of a logical basis behind like why gratitude, was going to lead you to God. Being thankful for goodness. Thank goodness. Everything good is like everything essentially. And like wrong or bad would be just anything that deviates from what's good or right. Or what's like and even then, I mean that like depending on your perspective, it's it's all life is interpretable and I mean there is a sense of like the point is that even when we do experience negativity, the point is to utilize it for good. But that's getting deeper into that in general. Either way, spiritual health is essentially if you want to just begin to work on your spiritual health before getting in any sort of religion or belief in God even, it's essentially just going to be gratitude, just being thankful, counting your blessings is like is what it is. It's just like when you're sitting there before you eat, just be thankful for your food. Be thankful for the fact that you have the food there, that that you're not in a worse condition, and then it really makes you think, man, I got a lot to be thankful for, and just start listing off the things you're thankful for: your family members, your like a pen, your home, your food, your life, your the things you have, your occupation, whatever it is, your health, your good health, all these things. Thankfulness as well as morality and your good habits and your charitableness and that kind of concept. Anything that would be like godly of you, which are going to be traits of like good habits. Your focus on morality itself, just being a good person, a righteous person, being charitable. That's going to be like how you focus on how you work on your spiritual health, which is tapping into just like what makes us uniquely human, using our reasoning, which you could just call reasoning spiritual health, but reasoning is also intellectual, which is what leads to spiritual. So it's very similar. So that's just one type of health. We also have physical health. Physical health is going to be our diet and our exercise, okay? And our other hygiene, as well as our body fat percent and our muscular development. So, physical health is going to be taking a shower, brushing your teeth, exercising, eating right, your body. So, one big standard we don't have set is seeing exercise and nutrition equivalent to like hygiene. We don't call it hygiene. If we called it hygiene, we would, then understand that it's like necessary. Like you see fat dudes who know how to shampoo their hair and know how to take plenty of showers, but know how to be fat just as much. And it's sad because they focus so hard on this part of their hygiene, thinking that's how I'll be attractive, because they don't know that it's the food that they eat that makes them fat and how much that makes them fat, and like they can eat less one day and still be fat and eat, and they just don't understand that like all they need to do is be in a caloric deficit, and I don't even know what calories are, so that's the reason why us human beings are lost like this and why we do such things. And why we would, be in such a way. Like you see fat dudes, dress nice, have nice Nikes and nice, jeans and a hoodie, cool hoodie, like a cool brand hoodie, and like he doesn't even fit in it good. He's just fat. And it's like you can see the like lostedness, like because healthy guys could wear like nothing clothes, like obviously nothing, and it's like you still have the same level of confidence, like these fat guys are all covered up and they're whatever, and so like that's the thing is like they're all showered down with, like shampooed hair. And the reason being is because they don't know what other things to do to make them more attractive. That's all they know that they have control over to make themselves attractive physically. And that's sad. But the beautiful thing is we now know that diet and exercise are two things we need to be incorporating in our daily life as health. The reason why it's hard to understand why we should go into a place and like lift weights up and down or go do any sort of exercise. Calisthenics is a little more understandable because it's a little more understandable, but the reason why we would go take out a time of our day to go do this as opposed to just not having done it, because we don't naturally work out, we don't naturally go work out, we naturally work. That's what we do. So work has changed with human development to be less intensive physically. So because of that, life in general is less physically demanding. So that's why now we have to go and pretend farm, pretend clean the house, pretend, actually for real, pretend do, real stuff, because, like pretend tend to the chickens, because we do not have, things aren't as hard. Our appliances, our lifestyles, our technology, it makes things so easy on us that, nowadays we have to eat, unless we live on a homestead, like a husband and wife live on a homestead, like the old natural way, like you have to take a time out of your, even then, what's the problem in doing, like I was thinking last night about how like weightlifting and bodybuilding are different. Weightlifting is essentially, lifting weights, but bodybuilding is actually muscle isolation and building the individual muscles in a healthy way to be stronger and healthier, more muscular, which is going to be healthier. So why I think, even the fact that humans may, unless you literally spend your whole day, which you do work the body really well doing construction, all this stuff. But I don't know. I'm still thinking about this, obviously. Unless you're just too tired because you spent all day and you have zero time, which I understand. If you really work hard, you probably don't have time to sit there and do forearm curls because you've been sitting there doing something like this all day, like a man or a woman, whatever you've been doing, So that's why we just probably might not have to do these things. But, that's kind of the reason why us humans have not understood why we would go spend time at a gym. And if you're a human that just can't, that really can't logically understand why we should exercise, come on. I was there too, as every other human. I was a human. I was a cheeseburger eater. I was every other human. I know what humans are. I know what irregular is. That's why I'm this, not regular. And it's so crazy when you have these standards down and you do things right on purpose. Oh, the discrimination. I'm already, just unique in general, and but the discrimination, and I live in a place where I'm discriminated extra because of the population. But discrimination is just heavy, just because you stand out, because, like women, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. It's sad. It's pathetic that men are, the issue is that it's like, there are like men that are like this close, that are like close to being fine, that are close to being on their standards. It's just the fact they don't have the standards identified is what makes their girlfriend or wife still like unhelpfully attracted to me, as opposed to him. I always say all the time, like, imagine if you guys were you plus me. Your traits that your girlfriend likes plus the traits that she likes in me put together. How amazing do you think you would be? So essentially, the thing is because like men are inadequate. Men are inadequate, all around. Younger guys are doing better, but they're still just not there. That just like me, like this in self-improvement stuff is helping a lot, but it's kind of like the standards is where it's at, because any man, I'll say, like, I'll have his wife looking, you know what I'm saying, because and it's like, because I have these standards down, it's like I've yet to meet a man, I'll say, that has these standards down or something similar enough to where it's like, all right, and I give my respect where it's due, obviously. That's why I'm able to have these standards and apply them. And, it's because when you're humble and you give your respect and you have an understanding and awareness, that's, you kind of like, that's what I mean when I say, like, being attractive to women isn't like, it's not even like awesome. It's just, it just is, it's a thing. It's not anything just fun. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. It's great. Mentally, it helps you get by. But, what also sucks is the state of this world. The state of, like, women in general. There's plenty of great women out there. It's just the state of, like, our mental, our knowledge. Like, women, that's what I'm saying. Women don't have these standards either. And women weren't really taught, a lot of things that, they really needed to be taught. Really needed to learn. Which, honestly, the fact that we're having to get stuck living on our own like this, the women and men like me, we learn a lot. We're having to learn a lot about what real life is. Like, these are the people, like, we're the people that are, like, listening to, like, the feminists and the goofies and the trannies, like, oh, man. Like, you just don't know what real life is. I'm sorry. Like, I mean, God bless, transsexuals, but whatever, obviously, and, homosexuality. We're going to get into that when we get into sexual health as to what, why I'm saying, like, that is just, I mean, if you're somebody who understands, you understand why, like, I'm saying what I'm saying, that transsexual is not natural, or, of course, that, that they're just, like, or just how I'm saying they're unnatural, the reasoning, it's not like, how you're the original, like, being gay is a choice argument. It's just not like that. It's more of like, this world's conditions causes this stuff. So that's what I'm getting at, is that the world's conditions causes these problems, and it's basically up to men. Men have the weight. Men have the responsibility, to take the initiative to make change and apply these standards. Women do too. But the thing is that when men have these things covered, it gives women freedom to do these things, all the more. So, there's just not a hint of, like, lack of truth in that statement. Because, like, women just, they have to be kind of given freedom. Y'all have to be given freedom to, flourish. And, like, it's up to us to allow that. And, like, there's just no, you just gotta think, like, we gotta step up and be the men, be the protectors, be the leaders, be the, the front line, like, we're built for that. Every other man in nature does their job. Every bull, every rooster, every buck does their job. Every silverback does their job. So we need to be using our testosterone how we're supposed to, and allowing our women to use their estrogen how they're supposed to. So that's a big part. Yeah. So physical health, diet and exercise. Part of your hygiene, that's covered. Mental health, I can go through these a little faster. Mental health, this isn't going to be the only thing I ever talk about on this topic. Like, I'm going to probably do individual videos or something like that. But mental health, we're going to get into that. That's going to be more cognition. So we've got mental health, emotional health, and intellectual health are three, kind of psychological concepts here in relation to our health. That's three of these 12 healths is going to be mental, emotional, and intellectual. Maybe social could fall into that too. But so yeah, social. We'll say social too. Is a product of cognition and whatnot. But cognition itself, let's say your cognition, you're gonna be able to develop that by exercising your cognition, reading, puzzles, games, anything that exercises your cognition in a healthy way, even all the other types of health, like exercise is going to benefit your cognition, in the sense that everything we do is all from cognition, like even down to like lifting weights. Like we think lifting weights is like just being our muscles, but it's, we wouldn't be able to pick it up if our brain didn't allow it, or send the signal to allow the muscle to even activate and do what it does. So it's kind of, it's such a huge part, it's at least 50%, of the whole thing going on is stuff going on in our brain, that has to do with working out, so it, working out's going to affect your mental. That's one reason it affects cognitive health so insanely. It literally, creates more real estate in the brain, essentially. Well, at least, cognitive real estate, let's say. So, we'll get into, your mental speed, ability, cognition, and even clear thought, stress, self-control. So, stress, we're going to go ahead and call that mental health, because stress is something that kind of manifests itself physically, socially, intellectually, and emotionally, but it comes from cognition, maybe. It's like just like weightlifting, physical stress from weight would be an effect on cognition. Mental stress is then, there might be mental and emotional stress, and intellectual stress, social stress, physical stress. But let's just go ahead and put stress in cognition and mental, and then branch it from there. So just, stress and, dealing with, the types of stress. Having better mental health is going to help with these things, and having better all the other healths is going to help with these things. So, yeah. Mental health, and then we're going to get into financial health. So financial health is going to be, of course, having to do with money. But it's more than that. It's deeper than that. It's more of the idea of value provided to the, earth. Because that's essentially what money is a quantitative, reciprocation of what value you provide, so that's kind of the point, is the more value you provide, the more money you get. It's not necessarily the more money you get, the more value you provide, but so that's kind of the thing. And it also would consider, it would, be regard your access to needs and luxuries. So that would be your financial health, and just money in general, which would be maybe a way of like your access to needs and luxuries, as well as, money, as a tool, money itself, can maybe be, like a like part of financial health that's like almost new to humans. We've always probably had some sort of money around, but it's essentially money, value provided, which is going to be money anyways. So that's our financial health. Obviously we boost these things through work, through the rest of our health, through providing more value, and through increasing our need to access to needs and luxuries in whatever ways we can. Being spending right. I like this. I like Lil Duval's saying "rich broke." It just is a good philosophy and a good starter philosophy, as well as Rich Dad Poor Dad. Great book. Making Peace with Money here is a great one too. This is a definitely one that a lot of people might not know about. But just in terms of those like philosophies, Rich Dad Poor Dad's so good and so well known because of the way he kind of like basically gives a logical and reasoning like premise to financial health, which is like it just gives lays down kind of laws to it and lines of logic that allow you to apply them. You work on it by reading these things and by just applying those fundamental logics to your health. And I like the Rich Broke from Lil Duval because he explains buying things, expensive things, like some things are valuable. You spend money on valuable things, but things that aren't things that you don't need to spend that much money on, you don't. And that's kind of like a beautiful way that I've even learned myself in terms of spending money is like you kind of like you value the valuable things. Like you'll never regret buying something actually valuable, but you will regret spending too much money on something like that you shouldn't have spent money on that much money on. But something that's actually probably was really expensive or just not always, because there's a lot of expensive things that aren't worth it. But if it was something that was actually good quality, and you know that, and you're good at shopping for that because you were taught that way, thanks to maybe my stepdad, he taught me real good about buying quality things. Unless you're doing that, then it's just not like it's source expense of your money, unless you're buying high quality things. So that's kind of the point, is that and so I remember in a neuroscience lab, I was talking we were having a conversation about, whether buying things from the store, based on price, like the off-brand or the on-brand things, and that's kind of the thing there, is like, there are some off-brand things you just, like, don't want to buy. Like, Walmart's off-brand stuff, they do really good, man. But like, there's some like the other brands, no. Like you just are way better off buying Bounty, and like, so I'm gonna check out the Walmart Dawn, but I was sold on just buying regular Dawn because you can notice a pure. I'm pretty sure I still like the regular Dawn better. Like, there's a difference in the cleanliness, but it may not be that big of a deal. But I'm just saying there's some things that are a big deal. So that's financial health, is having control over that and having a good, being, frugal and fruitful in the right ways. That'd be, charitableness is a part of financial health too. How much you give, that's a part of your finances. It's an important part, even though it's spiritual. It's an important part of your finances. Thanks God. So emotional health is going to be our next one. And that's going to deal with, of course, anxiety, depression, anger, fear, happiness, your emotions. And it's essentially just your control over them, your feeling of them, your awareness of them. These things are essentially, emotional health is one of those things that's affected through, you don't want to say like dwelling or rumination, but you want to say like you want to have some sort of like thought. You want to think about it. You want to like become. This is something, a way you learn about yourself. You learn your own self. Learn, this is just a way that you learn about yourself, and this is just a way that you learn about yourself, and you know, it's something that you do maybe when you're like alone and you think about, you just go over it in your head and you think about it and you just really think about it and you really, go over it. That's the way that you typically we work on our emotional health, is by like kind of getting alone, maybe writing down or just thinking in a healthy way, not for too long, just thinking about how we feel. It really does help to just go and sit alone or take time as a break and just sit and lay down and just, think. Maybe, even play like some music that helps, evoke that, sensation, um, God has given us beautiful ways to, understand ourselves and feel this life. So that's something I can say about emotion. Also, everything else is going to help our emotional health. The better our health is in every other aspect, the better our emotional health. This is for every health. The better every other one of our healths are going to be, the better every other one is going to be. So, next one, environmental. Your environment, your cleanliness, your, and gardening and having animals. So, environmental health will also be like pollution, obviously pollution. And so large-scale mammal farming is the largest pollutant known to man. In terms of greenhouse gas emissions, it's like over double. Cow farming, beef and dairy farming is like, over double everything else. So that's the thing we need to stop. Small-scale mammal farming is extremely important. And yeah, like it's important that we keep our cows and we mow our lawns with them and we feed our dogs with them and we use the milk for feeding or whatever, health, whatever. But, we don't need to eat that stuff because of our, atherosclerosis. I have the video on why we should eat red meat or dairy, why we should not eat red meat, dairy, or artificial sweeteners, why that's the only unhealthy food. Other mammals are mammal brothers and sisters. Why we don't need to eat them anymore because, we used to eat them because we lived in caves and couldn't farm and, access vegetation, which we can now. Which is essentially the line of logic as to why we would push away from eating mammals and eat things that are safer, safer and healthier to farm, like large scale bird and fish. Really isn't even that bad if we even need it in the first place. If everybody keeps their own amount of birds, even goes to fish and has room to fish, and if everybody just and lives off their own gardens and stuff, like we should have, gardens maybe instead of yards. And, the yards we do have, we should let cows and animals eat on it, essentially, instead of just mowing it. It's kind of the way to look at it. In that direction, at least. So that's environmental health, and it's going to be our cleanliness too, like keeping your house clean. Like that's, a huge part of your health. That's a huge job. Cleaning the house is an important job, a huge job. I think we've discredited it in the age of, like women and getting sucked out of the house, because like women were essentially the people that, allowed us to have clean homes and, technology and appliances. So essentially we've kind of like lost touch with like the actual like value and like duty that is keeping the home, like keeping our environment clean, because we all have to do it, even men outside when we work. We have to like do cleaning and stuff like that, and it's like cleaning and like simply just dusting, like clutter, getting rid of clutter, is essentially like not only allows something to work properly, but it allows it, it just keeps wrong things from happening. It's like, so basically cleanliness is next to godliness. Allahu Akbar. Thank you. Shout out my brother, man, that said that, man, God bless him. So cleanliness is next to godliness for real, because that's basically the sense of like you want to be in the opposite direction of pigsty. Like obviously your engine can't run if it's full of gunk, nothing can. And like we can't think when there's stuff everywhere where it shouldn't be. Everything has a place. So, that's the point. Dust doesn't have a place anywhere ever. Everything always has a place. Like this thing your clothes don't belong on the floor. This book doesn't belong here. So everything has a place at every given time. And it's about keeping that in line. that's a big part of environmental health. It's a really big job, and I think we as nowadays men and women discredit how important it is to keep our homes clean and in line, and how big and just important and of an occupation and part of our life and hygiene it is in our health. So that's just a big thing. Single humans understand what the male and the female aspects of life are. Like I was saying before, because you have to do these things on your own. You have to do the man job and the woman job, and you kind of realize, like, dang. I mean, appliances kind of allow you to think, oh, anybody can do this, because back in the day, you didn't have these things to make this so easy, where you're like, dang. That's just kind of the point, is that. But even then, still, when you're alone, you realize the masculine aspects of life as well as the feminine aspects of life, and how you fulfill both of them and how you have to. And that is a beautiful thing, because when we get married, what do you know? It's like it's like a cell, how a cell splits from 2 to 1, from 1 to 2. It's like combination of one unit of like combining yourselves. So one whole human specializes in all that feminist part, and the other human specializes in all that masculine part, and y'all are able to just control this yin yang of life, and be this power of light and what God created. So yeah, essentially, that's going to be your environmental health. And getting into that, we're going to go into sexual health. So sexual health is going to be, let's get into we can proper hormones, mate selection, sexual attraction, fertility, femininity and masculinity. We can even say your personality and your temperament, or not temperament, but your the way you act in these regards, which are going to be somewhat intellectual and somewhat social, but also a lot of it's going to come from your hormones that naturally cause you to be more masculine or feminine. Hormones play such an important part in our life that we don't value so much. Essentially that's the only thing that separates a man from a woman, is more testosterone. It's the only thing that separates, not exactly, but in terms of like a lot of parts of ourselves, and that's essentially what it's, makes, it's just what makes a man more of a man is testosterone, so like, it's just really important. It's just really important. Like when you think of like all the, men in nature that, have proper testosterone, like silverbacks, like their testosterone's so high. That's why they're so, big and muscular and just, heavy and strong, is because they have higher testosterone than the average human. So, when we're all you just think about a rooster and a bull, and how a bull turns to a steer when its testosterone is taken away. So it's just really important. Hormones are important. They're increased by health. Your estrogen and testosterone as a man or woman is increased by doing what's healthy for you, what's naturally healthy, exercise, living a healthy lifestyle, all these things. So, masculinity and femininity, and your sexual attraction, and your mate selection, and your fertility. And also, we're going to get into sexual transmutation, semen retention. I like the term sexual transmutation because it kind of applies to men and women. Essentially, sexual transmutation, as Napoleon Hill describes, is essentially taking our sexual motivation, which is a huge part of our life, just like how we're attracted physically. That's how we our sexual motivation is the only way. I even started it off wrong. Like, sexual motivation is almost, is important. It should have been up there after spiritual health, because like that is like what we are. Like, I'm not here talking. We're not here having anything we do or look at unless we have sex. So it's kind of like, like we have to have that first. Sex comes first, to even have anything. Obviously not like we have to just be constantly having sex, but I'm saying that like, obviously you have to have sex to create a child, to have life, at certain periods. So that's kind of the point, is that if you're homosexual or you're transgender, you're obviously doing something incorrect because you're not conducive to making life. So that's kind of the basis upon lack of health in homosexuality and transgenderism and deviant sexuality and deviant genderism, because of the fact that it's just obviously not coming from healthy people. Not even to get into the studies that show that transgender people are just essentially lack of. I mean, this is what they are. They're people just like me 2 years ago, before I had any idea of these health standards or any interest in working out. People that were less well raised than me, or just had certain circumstances that caused them to view life and just grow up in the same life, which none of us are anywhere near far off from them. We're all the same people. Just because they dress as a woman now or a man is really not that weird. You're like, obese people are just as bad, if not worse. Like literally. So it's kind of like that's kind of just a big thing here, is that like, I mean, I grew up my whole life obviously libtard AF, not really. I'm just saying, like, that's why I like to call it as a joke. I'm obviously really open-minded. I grew up my whole life, I mean, obviously I still believe this, obviously I grew up thinking, gay is not a choice. Why would any person wake up and say, man, I want to be gay, just especially back when it was less accepted, when I was growing up, like, why would a gay person wake up and want to be like gay just to kind of deal with like the aspects of bullying, for example. So obviously these people weren't just like necessarily choosing, or at least most of these people weren't just choosing to be gay. So what is the reasoning behind being gay? And now I kind of understand that there's a reasoning behind it that isn't the fact that it's like a natural phenomenon that should be happening, which is okay. That's perfectly fine. I mean, like I said, I understand lack of this health. Like, you haven't met a gay person that has all these things in line. That's the point. That's why we set these standards, so we don't have these things anymore. And we can all find our mates, like, that make us feel comfortable and make us feel like ourselves, and we are a good self and a good person, and we're all unique people. Like, there are men and women that are so unique and interesting of people, and like, there's no man that can't, there's not a woman out that they can't love each other, or the same for a woman, and we all know that. Even gay people know that they deep down, they would love to be able to have an actual natural relationship. It just seems unreal because they have, their social health and their, self-perspective and perception and whatnot has been skewed and strayed. So just all these things will help line that up and help, you see, I mean, just think about it. Like, imagine the beauty in like a gay person and a lesbian guy, a gay guy and a lesbian woman, like, realizing their, actual health, and, it's kind of like, what they were gay or lesbian, and just kind of like find the love in each other, and that's just beautiful, and start becoming healthy and look like a normal human beings, like everybody else, just because everybody, like I say, everybody in this world, I haven't said that on physical health, but every single person in this world is so attractive, is God level attractive. I mean, that's what I essentially said that, but I didn't say this like this. I say this is my thing that I say, like, people won't believe me. I'll sit there and say, yeah, that fat girl, she's beautiful. She's an angel, just like every other fine girl you've ever seen. Every single whatever, like, they're just covered in a fat suit. They're just covered in lack of health, and lack of exercise, and bad diet, and too much fat. It's essentially too much body fat and lack of muscular development. That's all our bodies are, is fat and muscle. That's all the things that we can do to change our body. Like, we don't have face muscles. We can't go do a face workout. Like, our faces are we think that our faces, like, we all have beautiful faces because they're human. I mean, unless you have a really, like, jacked up face, literally, like you have, like, a actual disorder, like, where, people have, like, messed up stuff, that's different. But even then, like, when you have a beautiful body, I mean, those things really just don't, essentially, it's not that you have a beautiful body, it's that when you take control of all the things you can take control of, which one thing is going to be your body. There's plenty of people in wheelchairs that they could sit there and do a forearm curl. And imagine, and just the not only would their forearms look so insanely healthy to the point where it'd almost be like, dang, like it would be respectable. It would literally be respectable and attractive to a woman, even if the dude looked like, crazy, but he had like developed forearms. Not only would he be attractive, he would literally, that would make him more attractive. Like you wouldn't make him look as crazy. He would have healthier hair, healthier face, healthier skin. Like it would go and his mind would activate better and be faster. All of these things would happen. So we all have an ability to work on something. Even if we're a paraplegic and all we can do is move our forearm. Like we can do something, and that's for every old person, for every young person, for everybody. Fat person, skinny person, lean person, muscular person. Like that's what this is. So, that's kind of the point. Is like we're all beautiful. We're all meant to be beautiful. We're all meant to be healthy sexual beings. Sexual in a sense, not like bonobos where we just do it all the time. But we're women. I don't know about women. God bless them. But essentially, the way I see it is that we're not supposed to be like monkeys. We're supposed to be like humans. We're supposed to be civilized and godlike, and have sex for making children and for pleasure of women only. That's about it. That seems to be the two reasons that humans should have sex, is to please a woman and to have a child. Please a woman in wedlock, because wedlock is important to human beings. The concept, because it is commitment and safety, which is a type of like financial health essentially, which is why it's financial, because like, you don't want to have a child potentially, without a father. Like, I mean, that's like a thing about an animal in the wild, just like getting pregnant and then like the father. I mean, sometimes animals do this, but it's not. I'm just saying like that's not essentially. Even then the father probably does something, has some effect, or that animal's built for that. But as human beings, we're supposed to have the mother and the father. Regardless, you have to have your father in some way, shape, or form. And so, and your mother. So that's why we do that, is we don't just have sex with people that we're not sure that we want to be with forever. It's cool that y'all are attracted enough to have sex. I think that's, very monkey of people, though. To just, because, we're supposed to be attractive enough to have sex with each other. But, it's about, actually, working together and doing something for the positive good. That's the point, which is the next level. So, that's sexual health, and going into that, we're going in family health. And so family health is going to be your relationship with your mother and father, and your relationship with and value provided for one's family. That's going to be your family health, like how your relationship with them and how much value you provide for them. As a father, as a brother, as a son, as a grandson, as a daughter, granddaughter, wife, sister, whatever, grandmother, grandfather, how, father, mother, how you provide for your family and your relationship with them is your familial health. Being a mother or a father, like I say. So, that's really, there's not really much to it than that. Spending more time with your family, spending quality time with your family is going to be, important. Even taking breaks, spending time away from your family actually really increases, your connection with them. Just in a, such a, animalistic sense almost. It's just such a primal sense. Because it's almost it's just something that increases your, it does. It's something we learned about in communication class or family health class, something like that. Family development. Is that when but essentially when college kids leave the house, they start, that's kind of what I was talking about too, is about how when we live on our own, we start to learn things that we need to learn. When you live on your own, you kind of the distance, obviously relieves tensions between you and your family. Just everyday problems. And even everyday problems, they get relieved and understood and fixed. And even long-term ones, they get relieved and understood and fixed. And so all these things just get looked over. And when you do meet each other again, you don't want to sit there and focus on the little bad thing that y'all used to argue about. You want to focus on the good things and meeting and all the good things that you are now bringing back together, which reinforces new good things. And, so it consistently reinforces new goodness. And just spending a little bit too much time with your family can kind of, cause that same level of friction. It's just friction that kind of naturally happens with people that love each other and people that are trying to, get better and be healthier. And in a less stressful world, we might not feel a lot of these things so much, but at the same time, kind of life is, a stressful test and a lesson. So, we get through it. But family health is important. The way you work on it, spending time with your family, providing more value to your family, learning about how you can provide value to your family, realizing how you can, and doing it correctly. And so that will also bring us into occupational health, which is how fulfillingly one spends their 24 hours of time, which is, how you spend your time. Whether you, mow lawns all day, whether you work a 9 to 5, whether you, are a personal trainer, whether you, garden all day, whether you, are a housewife. Like I say, you garden and do dishes and the things you do, like the things that I do, like the feminine things that I do, like when I have time to do them, when I have free time, like that make me feel good and actually like are comfortable and comforting in the, like, while doing them and for me through doing them, So, how you spend your time, I think, we have a lot of resentment as men and women towards, like, the feminine things, now that I'm talking about them in our life. Like, man, like, how can you not, just enjoy, you gotta accept the benefit of dishes and cleaning and laundry and the value of doing them and the enjoyment and the relaxation. Like, that's the one job. That's the easy stuff. Like, that's the stuff that you can only do when you're not at work. So, like, you got to look at it from that line of logic. Obviously, logic and reasoning is going to help me see it that way, and it has. But it's just, those are the things, and not only that, they're conducive to, like, your literal health, like your environmental health, like I was talking about. They're like, that's such a just effect, like, like, through doing these things, you're increasing your quality of life. So it's like just such a, like, push, like that's what women are just so intense for. It's just like literally just pushing that envelope, So, like, I don't know, and just like it's just like such a just endless, like, push of that, like, to just greatness, when you really are tapped in. Like, when women really are, when the feminine is really tapped in. I'm not even just talking about women. I'm talking about for men and single women and married women is who I'm talking about. When you're properly married women that are married to a masculine man that's covering the masculine. Let's get that covered. So, because obviously women are really like, typical woman, unhealthy woman, complaining about the type of man that there are. But obviously there are healthy women that are with inadequate men. But we're not talking about inadequate men whenever we, use these comparisons. We're talking about adequate men. We're talking about a wife with an adequate husband. That's what I'm talking about. When you, value these things of your health, they just become, you just can find the greatness in them and the happiness, in all of it. So occupational health, like I said, it's going to be what type of work you do, what you do with your time, that's going to be like a big part. Obviously, your other healths are going to be affected by that. Your occupational health, like, I always say this one thing. So speaking of the transgender thing still is like, like I was talking about, like, it's all about your health and what you do with your time and your life. So, like, 2 years ago, before I worked out and stuff like that, I was, like I say, to everybody else, like I just said, everybody's just as bad as these transgenders because none of us are doing the right things with our health or time. We're all eating Hot Pockets and pizza and, just wasting time of our life. Instead of, like, doing the healthy things. Like, think about how many days I just didn't work out. Like, all I did was eat unhealthy and didn't work out. And obviously I didn't have to work, which is, I didn't have to work because we're humans now with this technology where we don't have to go farm all day. So essentially I was on a jog after I got into jogging. Thankfully, thank God, I am now into jogging and running when I wasn't then as much. I jog 5 days a week like every human should. In some way, whether it's through your work or whether it's just for your mental health or for your physical health and mental health, but you're 150 minutes of cardio per week, of that state of cardio per week. So I'm not saying it should be 100, 30 minutes a day. I'm just saying, you got to get your, it's about, but you should get your cardio. Everybody does. So before now that I'm into running, I was on a run and I saw this, transgender person on their bike, on a bike ride. And, just seeing that, I don't have a bike. I've been wanting a bike too. And that's another thing when I got into running, I was like, dang, that's something I can get into too. Another thing I can get into. And I just didn't spend my time or money on to take up some of my 24 hours in a healthy way to do, to have me conducive to just living a fulfilled life. So this transgender person, those hours that they would have, just spent sitting on Tumblr or the internet soaking in information about why they should be transgender and what's wrong with them and crap, goes and works on their health, and I just got a look from them, and that look, I swear, was the look of like them feeling bad, just obviously, that realization, especially when they see a person like me. Because the thing is about me is exactly this. How I'm talking about how I was the libtard guy. Every gay person knows that. And not only do they know that, but I'm I do this stuff secretly and openly in terms of being just a cool person and accepting and, loving person. I fuck with everybody, sadly to cuss. But, I, love everybody, honestly, I'm happy to say that, man. Because I appreciate everybody. That's kind of my point. I guess I don't F with everybody. If we wanna be real, if we really want to be using our words like spells. Let's say I love everybody. So let's just say that. Yeah, man. So, and so it, I'll have conversations with anybody, and talk it and be open with anybody. Because you have to realize, when I see that, if I think about a gay or a transgender person, if I think it's wrong, it's not I think, I've already said that I don't think they have the fault. That's the same amount of fault. I mean, they have the same amount of fault that I did not knowing how to exercise and work out. Which isn't really my fault. It's the fact that we just didn't have these standards set. We don't in society, but now we are. I'm just part of the movement of moving these things into play. Okay? So, thanks to my lifestyle, my parents, and whatever. So, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that now that we spend our time, we're occupationally correct. That's another way that we influence our health and be more correct in general of human beings. Knowing what we should be doing with our time, knowing what's manly, knowing what's womanly, knowing what's humanly. So, next, let's get into our social health. We've only got 3 more healths left. We've got social, public, and intellectual, okay? So, social health is going to be our ability to appropriately / properly interact with other humans and animals, and how often / the quality / the quantity of these social interactions, okay? So, just that's simple. It's as straightforward as it gets. It kind of self-explanatory. How it explains how we work on this. Obviously you work on social skills. There are social skills that you can learn. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a great book to get you at least, started on thinking about social skills. I really, it's a great book because it's somebody that basically put the standards together. It's not even just necessarily standards. It is, but it's more just a set of skills, a set of different skills that you can apply. And after, just learning some skills allows you to get the gist of how the skills in general works. Social skills in general, would work to be able to, apply more skills and understand and reason more skills. So yeah, that's a good way to practice it. And, just practice in general, just going out in society and learning from others. I mean, we get our social health we're taught it, So going out and about, good places is where you're going to get your best social health at. Alright, so including that, we're going to go into public health. So public health issues like obesity, malnutrition, lack of exercise, socioeconomic issues, etc. Wars going on. That's going to be public health. That's going to be our public health concerns. Even viruses, whatever. That's going to be public health. you know, um, so just anything that affects the public, and it's basically just all of this health on a large scale. The concept, like the need for these standards, this is public health. Public health standards is human being health standards, and public health is one of them. But this is a type of public health, standards like this. So that's our public health. We work on this obviously by pushing standards, helping others be healthy, being like being cooperative in our society and in public, with our population, and being like, proactive in terms of our health, spreading messages, spreading good help, spreading, everything we need to do to make things more healthy and us more understanding and aware. All right, so with that covered, let's finish it off, man. I'm ready to finish it off with intellectual health. So intellectual health is our knowledge and ability to reason. So, and obtain / utilize knowledge. Our knowledge and ability to reason and obtain / utilize knowledge. Okay? So, that's going to be our logic and creativity / imagination, our curiosity and motivation. And we can work on these things through reading, curiosity, math, research, and teaching. Okay? So if you we can practice these things through that. So you can practice by reading. You can practice by doing math problems. You can practice by by having to do things that you have to reason, doing math, doing finances, doing calculations, doing calorie counting. Which calorie counting would go under physical health. A type of physical health, counting your calories and being more aware of your nutrition. Obviously, it's nutrition. So nutrition is going to be eating the right foods and eating the right amounts. And so, and I have videos about nutrition, essentially what the only wrong foods are. The only other thing about eating is counting your calories right, which I'll make more in-depth videos about that. I mean, I can't say for food. I will say for physical health, I will say this really important thing is that if you're overweight, you want to cut carbs and eat only vegetables and protein, like chicken breast and eggs and turkey, poultry, fish, and vegetables, low carb vegetables, so like greens. If you're overweight, that's what I would do, is eat almost unlimited amounts of those, because vegetables and protein are going to be used as more like building blocks, whereas carbohydrates and fat are going to be more like gasoline to power our machine to use blocks to build. So we only want to eat carbs and fats as like fuel and as a type of fuel. And protein and vegetables we want to eat kind of a consistent and large amount of daily, especially if we work out. So that's kind of a way to look at our calories. It's like you want to eat about a gram per pound of body weight of protein, as well as pretty much as much vegetables. Vegetables, you can eat plenty. It doesn't matter, eat as much as you'd like, because they're not really much calories. I'm talking about low calorie, like green vegetables, not really like obviously I'm not talking about corn and stuff like that. That's a grain, but I'm not talking about certain vegetables that are just higher carb. Talking about low carb vegetables, your average what we count as a low carb vegetable, like broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and mostly greens. You need plenty of that. And then fats, you should really be eating mostly fats, to be eating good fats, because your body's going to want to use carbs for energy, essentially, for all types of energy. And carbs are just going to be better foods in general. Excuse me. Not necessarily better foods, but they're going to be better just source of energy. For fats, you just want to choose healthy fats and eat them, often, which are going to be nuts, seeds, avocado, olive oil, fish, and eggs. So yeah, you want to eat those things for fats. And then carbs, you just want to eat carbs as gasoline. The more you move in a day, the more carbs you need. The less you move in a day, the less carbs you need. Regardless of how much you move, you eat the same amount of protein and vegetables and the same amount of fat, essentially. I mean, if you can move more, you can have more fat because it is gasoline. But like I said, you'd probably rather have more carbs. So that's kind of the point of carbs, is to have it in relation to how much you burn. And then you can look up how many calories you burn. We burn about 2,500 calories a day. Protein is 4 calories per gram. carbs are 4 calories per gram, and fats are 9 calories per gram. So with that being said, you can kind of count how much calories you should eat of each thing using a gram per pound of body weight of protein, and filling in the rest of the calories with carbs and fats. Fats you don't need a certain amount of. You just need to make sure that you're getting if you're not sure of if you're not taking any fish oil pills or something like that, I would say get at least like 20, maybe 40 grams of fat. But if you're taking fish oil supplementation and you're definitely only getting your fats from healthy fats, like you cook in olive oil, 20 grams of fat is fine if that's all you eat in a day. Because you don't eat fat. We don't eat fat for the calories to burn, to throw logs in our chamber. We want, sticks that we can burn and utilize actually also as glycogen too. So that's why we'd rather have fat as carbs. We'd rather have carbs instead of fats for energy. So that's that too. And then also another thing I want to say, something you can do to help your cognition is, just doing anything healthy. Any healthy, medicines that that can be used to affect your cognition in a healthy way. Whether 420 friendly medicines or fungal medicines. There's different types of medicines that can do these kind of things to help benefit us. That's just another thing I wanted to mention. A small thing, not really too small, but another thing that's really, those things are actually going to be really effective at like fixing and making effects on like mental health and cognition and stuff like that, and creating new brain areas and new brain connections and stuff like that. Not brain areas, but new brain connections in brain areas. It's just going to be very important for that. Those things are really going to kick those things, as well as exercise. Something like an exercise as importantly. So intellectual, let's go ahead and get into our knowledge and ability to reason and obtain / utilize knowledge. Obviously, how much knowledge you have, how you use it. And then part of your intellectual health is going to be your curiosity and motivation. Curiosity is a level of, motivation is a type of, a type of health and a type of intelligence. How motivated you are and how curious you are. Because obviously the more curious and motivated you are, the more you'll be able to do and find out. So, yeah. Logic and creativity / imagination falls under here. And also, like I said, reading helps this. You can read. Reading, writing helps this. Researching, doing math, and teaching. Teaching is one of the best ways to learn, because you have to think in terms of how to explain to somebody else. So you essentially go through the concept in a whole other way. So doing what I'm doing now is helping a lot. That's what we should always do. If we ever want to learn something, we should go teach it to somebody else. Which, how beautiful that it allows us to spread it to somebody else. So okay, here we are. That's going to be the end of this video, where I have talked about the 12 types of health, the 12 health standards for men and women. So if you optimize these, you will live an ultimately fulfilled life. You see? And correct life. As much as you possibly can, because that's what these things are conducive to. Essentially. That's my video. If there's anything you want to add, please add it in the comments. If there's anything, that you, anything that you would like to say, please add in the comments. I just want to say thank you, everybody. I just want to say I appreciate everybody. I appreciate everybody that watched. I appreciate every moment that you watched. I appreciate everything that you learned. I appreciate everything that you do to spread this, and I appreciate you. And I just hope, God blesses everybody. And so let's get it, man. Yeah. Done.